I think the number one piece of advice I can just give you is stay hydrated. Really, that solves all your problems. As long as you stay hydrated, doesn't matter what water bottle you use. Drink from a glass, but as long as you get your water, you'll be good. Alright, so hey everybody, my name is Den, and welcome to the next episode of whatever show this is, but I'm going to be talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart today, and that is working remotely. A lot of us are working remote for the past couple of weeks and probably for the next couple of weeks given the current situation around the coronavirus. So I wanted to talk about some of the advice that helped me be more effective while I'm remote, and hopefully it'll help you and your coworkers be more efficient in your work. So the number one piece of advice that I want to give you is get your webcam working. That probably goes hand in hand with the fact that, one, you need to have a webcam, but I prefer talking to people that I can actually see. And, as a remote worker, I usually have a bit of a problem looking at just avatars chatting in somebody's profile photo, which is nice. Somebody might have a professional photo, which is great, but it's not the same as seeing somebody's face and their reactions. Now, I fully understand that some people might have some reservations around that. Some people might be introverted. Others might have some health issues and they don't want to necessarily showcase that when they're working remotely. But for those exceptional cases, that should be an exception. So as a rule of thumb, try to turn on a webcam. It makes a huge difference for everybody that's on calls and just talking to you in various meetings. The second thing that I want to recommend is make sure to write things down. So remote workers, as you know, we are not really privy to any sort of water cooler talk. We're not in hallways or offices. So when things are written down, that means that things are not lost. For myself, for example, when I work at Microsoft and I have to look at specific documentation or I have to look at notes, it's very easy to just go to a OneNote or go to a Word document that somebody commented on and just have the conversation there, because that way it's very easy to review, provide feedback, and do pretty much anything that I need to do. The third thing that I would say is generally try to set boundaries for your work style. So when you're remote, it's very easy to kind of blur the lines between what is your home life and what is your work life, because the day generally doesn't start when you walk into the office. The day starts when you are at your computer. So in this case, make sure that you have kind of a fixed workflow where you start at 9, you check out at 5 or 6 or whatever the time is that is required for your particular situation. But for me, generally I check out around 5:30 or 6. And my ritual that I do to kind of signal the fact that I ended the day is just writing down the status or the weekly heartbeat for that particular day. So I just outline things that I've done, things that I've accomplished. It's kind of a reflection on what I've done in the past, 8 hours of work, and I find it super helpful. And that to me associates with the fact that, okay, now I get to relax. So very, very important to have that boundary, because otherwise it's very easy to kind of slip and make sure that you're working, until 10 p.m. and before you know it, you're working until 10 p.m. every day. So keep that in mind. The other part that I would say is very important is making sure that you have water cooler talk with your coworkers. That is harder to do when you're remote, granted. And what I found that is super helpful is when you have something like a Teams channel or a Slack channel where you can just come in and share whatever is of interest to your team. Memes, news, funny stories, book reviews, food place reviews, whatever floats your boat. It doesn't really matter. But just having that informal conversation really helps establish a relationship between you and your coworkers, that you're not just in there for, getting things done, which, hey, it's your job, I get that. But it's also you build a bit of a more friendly rapport with those that you work with, and it's easier to collaborate then because it's more of a personal relationship than just business. The fifth thing that I would call out is make sure that you provide and be open to feedback. One thing that I've noticed for me as a remote worker, it's generally very hard to get input on what I do and how I do things. And so that means if I have to ask others, hey, tell me more where I'm screwing up, or tell me more where I do things better, it's an uncomfortable conversation at first, really. But what I found is that just by emailing people or just asking them, hey, I'm looking for feedback to get better, it really helps to get their input. So be proactive about reaching out, and also be proactive about asking when you need to give feedback, and tell somebody when something makes you uncomfortable. So for example, if somebody is not including you in meetings that you feel you should be included on because you're remote and they're all meeting in conference rooms, call that out. So don't do it in public, but send a note to that person and say, hey, I didn't feel comfortable with the fact that I was not included, and go from there and see what the reaction is and act accordingly. The sixth one is, I would say, reduce the meetings. Just to me, meetings are important, and it's great to talk to people face to face, and especially when you're not in the office. But it's also one of those things that it's a time sink. It really takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of effort, and oftentimes it hinders your productivity. So what I do is I completely decline and not schedule meetings that are status updates or meetings that are the kind of meetings where you just sit and review a document instead of providing that review in the document itself. So I prefer writing things first. So if you have a document to review, add comments on a document. If you have to review a specific vision or specification, you can have that discussion in a work item. If you're using, Azure boards or Jira or whatever that might be, you can have the conversation, a ticket, pull up there, and then set up a meeting when you actually need to discuss or ideate or create, a more detailed vision and brainstorm what things need to happen. But it's not just about telling where everybody is. For all those other things, you can always communicate asynchronously. So what I mean by that is you can do that on your own time, on the time of the workers that you are collaborating with, right? So everybody has different schedules, and that way you're not interrupting them. So writing over meetings. The other part here, and this is very, very important, it's having reliable tech. This is easier said than done, I realize that, but having a good webcam, having a good microphone, having good headphones that are noise canceling makes a huge difference when people talk to you. I had numerous cases where I had to talk to people that use a laptop microphone or a very cheap webcam, and it's just not the same experience. I don't feel like I'm talking to almost a person. It has that lag, and it has that issue where I'm not hearing them properly, I misheard them, or their networking gear is bad at home, so their Wi-Fi is not working properly, and now the network drops and the camera image quality drops. It's problematic. So invest a little bit, and I would even say that if it's required for your work, talk to your manager and see if you can expense that through your company. Usually a lot of companies do that, but it's key to my productivity, and I know it makes a huge difference for the people that I work with. The other one is make sure that you leverage collaboration tools within your team. So things like Trello, things like Azure boards, like I mentioned earlier, very, very important to have one source of truth where anybody can go in and see what the status of the project is, what are the things on your backlog, what things need to happen. Because when things are happening in email or things are happening in conversation or in chats, it's very hard to follow, and then you have 7, 8 different places where you need to go and check the status, which becomes hard. And instead, what you can do is just have one source of truth and take advantage of those tools. Take advantage of Trello. Make sure that your entire team goes to Trello and uses it to arrange kind of your backlog or things that you need to get done this week. And it's also very transparent, which kind of brings me to the next point, which is be transparent about your status. And this is especially critical for your manager, because as a remote employee, nobody sees what you're doing directly in the office, right? Like you're not telling somebody, hey, I just shipped this awesome feature. So instead, what you can do is obviously communicate that to your team, but also tell your manager, and this is the ritual that I called out earlier, where I have this notebook where I just put together things that I've done today, things that I've done for every week, things that I'm planning, and things that I'm blocked on. So I have this rule of 3 Ps essentially: plan, problems, and progress. So progress essentially is what I've done in the past time period, which can be a day or a week. Planned, things that I'm planning to do in the next time period, which usually I just do it on a weekly basis. I don't need to outline the plan for the day. And obviously the problems is when I have blockers or any issues that I need to discuss with my manager, or maybe there's something that I can help unblock other team members with that I feel is problematic. So just having that in place and sharing that openly makes it very easy for your manager to see what exactly are you working on, what is the blocking pieces, and whether you're working on the right things, because there's always a million things to work on, and your manager needs to make sure that they're guiding you into the right direction. And the last thing that I want to call out is be aware of time zones. Not everybody's in the same time zone with you. So I know in my experience, I work with a team that is in China. So they are a number of hours ahead of me. So whenever my day ends, their day starts. So plan accordingly for things like meetings or conversations, and when you expect a response, be aware that not everybody can instantly respond to you within, an hour or 2 hours. You might need to wait for the next business day. So keep that in mind. I don't want you to be frustrated with it. It's not a point of frustration. Everybody has their work-life balance and work style and work hours. you need to be mindful of that and just consider it in your remote working lifestyle. And for more details, I'll be writing a blog post. Check out the blog post that I'm linking in this video that can show you how to work efficiently while remote. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. See you later, folks.